Welcome, ladies and gents. Chris Andre here. You can find me at BetBoxing on Twitter for boxing related tweets, or of course you can subscribe to the channel Let's Talk Boxing. I'm sorry that this Canelo Alvarez versus Caleb Plant prediction and preview video, a bit of a technical breakdown, is coming so late in the day. I've been run off my feet. I was intending to do this a lot earlier. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to. So it's now 6 p.m. UK time on the night of the fight. So we're 11 hours away from the fight, something like that. 10, 11 hours. It's not going to be as detailed a technical breakdown video as I usually do here because of the constraints of time. I really need to get this up and then get back to work. So what I'm going to do is talk about a few of Caleb Plant's patterns of fighting, shall we say, and why I believe Canelo Alvarez will be the guy to win this fight. We'll talk about, obviously, Caleb does some brilliant things. A lot of you will know, long-time subscribers, way before he was famous, he was a guy I was talking about as potentially being able to get to the top of the sport. I didn't necessarily think he would go on to fight for an undisputed super middleweight title. This is obviously a massive fight, of course. It is a huge step up for him. But nonetheless, I expected him to become a world-class fighter, and he has indeed become that. But when we're dealing with the elite, you have to really nitpick at every single detail and look to see which elite fighter is going to expose the potential limitations. And sometimes they're not even limitations. They're just areas whereby stylistically they don't quite fit in against a specific opponent. And in this particular case, forget the fact that Canelo's the cash cow and things like that. I just genuinely believe that Canelo Alvarez has a certain set of skills that do not suit Caleb Plant's style of fighting. So let's get cracking and let's get down to business. Now, one of the ways that Caleb Plant likes to distribute that weight is almost like a pendulum type swinging of his body weight. He'll go from back foot to front foot. This isn't a guy that glides in and out in the way, say, a Cuban fighter would do. You know, he's a mover, but he's a mover in a different way. You see this a lot more with some types of American fighters. You see it a lot more with African American fighters. It's a swinging of momentum from back foot to front foot. And what he'll often do, because he's quite lead hand dominant, he will launch off of that lead foot. So his weight distribution is very much in line with the lead foot. And I'll explain why this is significant in a moment, right? But we'll get to that first. First, let me just show you examples of what I'm talking about regarding his weight distribution and how he will leap into shots. He used a lot of feints, as you saw there. Another feint there. There's misdirection. There's feints with that lead hand when he wants to bring the backhand into play. But as you can see, sometimes both his feet will leave the ground when he's launching a shot because he's leaping into that shot. Did you see the way the back foot there came off of the floor and he lent all his weight into that lead leg when he shot the jab to the body? This is something, again, look at him leaning onto that lead foot, back onto the back foot, lead foot. There's that shift of weight, but predominantly when he's going to launch a power shot, it comes from that lead foot. Now, that wide stance with that lead foot means that although he can swing side to side by pivoting off, sometimes he'll swing that leg backwards, as you can see there, to reset. What will happen is, because the stance is quite wide, he isn't in and out quickly. It's sideways, lateral movement that gets him out of trouble. You saw again there, shifted onto that front foot and he leapt in with that lead left hook. Now, I just want to take you back to that last shot there for a moment in this sequence. I want you to see his back foot as well, because it's going to be significant later on, something that I want to point out later on. You see how that back foot rotates almost completely off the floor? His back foot is now completely off the floor when he's launched that. It's not a right hand where if he falls short, he can quickly adjust and come back out. I'll explain why that's important later on. You can see it again here, the swinging of momentum from back to front. You see how he threw that jab and then almost swung his right hand around. That left hook again, all his weight was onto the left side of his body, and he launched a left hook, a jab, then a left hook. Again here you'll see his feet come off of the floor as he launches his way in. See that? There's a leap, there's a jump. He jumps into the shot. You can see it again here. Look, back, front, the weight distribution. But it's off of that lead foot that he tends to throw the shot. You'll see the leap again there. So you saw there, I'll show you one more time. He's moving off the back foot. He's going to shift his weight onto that front foot before launching in with a left hook. There, and there's the left hook. Now, you saw Caleb Truax read that. Caleb Truax didn't come back with anything there to counter that. But the point is, there is a pattern there in how he does that. He goes back foot, front foot in terms of weight distribution. Then if he's talking about a power punch, he will lean off of that lead foot and he'll go to work from there. When he is forced into an area, perhaps with his back on the ropes, or if the opponent gets close to him, because of that wide stance, whereby sometimes, like I was saying, he's got that weight onto that lead foot, rather than being able to glide in and out quickly, if he can't rotate and turn you, if he can't pivot out, he will often dip his body, and he'll often dip it to the right. This is quite a consistent pattern. You're going to see it here, for instance, against Caleb Truax. There, he's dropped down there. He's still in the pocket. See how wide a stance it is there? If he wants to move, that right foot will then swing around for him to try and escape outwards. But ultimately, look at the way he keeps dipping down to that right-hand side. This is a method of defense for him. You see it here against Uzgata guy as well. He's on the back foot here, excuse me. And you can see there's a lot of movement down. As he then comes back up, Uzgata guy throws the left hook, lands to the body. This is an area, a method of defense whereby if somebody's headhunting, they are going to essentially miss a lot of your shots because you're going to duck underneath them. Many fighters do this, right? There's nothing wrong with it. Paulie Malignaggi used to do it a lot. There's nothing wrong with it. But remember, styles make fights. And there's a specific punch that you guys are all aware of course, that Canelo left uppercut or left shovel hook, which will tend to find a home against opponents that tend to do this. Floyd Mayweather used to do this as well, by the way. But before someone says to me, but Floyd schooled Canelo, this is an entirely different Canelo Alvarez. And Floyd was much slicker than Plant at sliding in and out. He had a much better method of delivering shots at range, and his weight distribution was often on his back foot rather than his front foot, which enabled him to escape more quickly. So that's another thing I wanted to point out to you guys, which again, I'll come back to, right? Where I'm just laying the groundwork for what we'll come back to. The other thing that Caleb Plant's got somewhat of an issue with is that he can be a little bit reluctant to commit with any meaningful shot against an unstable target. He himself is an unstable target. There's a lot of movement, a lot of feints, a lot of upper body movement. He gives you different looks. So Caleb Plant, he can throw punches from quite high up, or he can dip low and throw punches from there. So he varies his height dynamic. But he doesn't like an opponent who is an unstable target. In my humble opinion, it's something that makes him a little bit reluctant to commit to. And bear in mind, the other things I've spoken about so far aren't limitations. Shifting your weight onto your front foot, things like that. It's not an error, but it's just something that isn't going to fit well. It isn't going to marry well against Canelo Alvarez, his specific style. Whereas this one, this is potentially a limitation. I just want you to see, first and foremost, what you're going to see here is that when you punch with Caleb Plant, because he commits so much and he launches himself into that shot, and that back foot can often, remember earlier I showed you how it rotated and almost came off the floor, so it completely commits his weight onto his lead foot. That makes him unable to be mobile in retreating. Once he's thrown that shot, he can't then come out as quickly. And what you're going to see, therefore, is when you punch with Caleb Plant, rather than trying to lead, or rather than trying to punch after he's punched, because that's when he can be slick. He throws a shot, you throw a shot, trying to catch him on his way out, and he's slick getting outside, and you make him miss. He makes you miss. Whereas in this particular case, when you punch at the same time as him, you can find a home and he doesn't get out as quickly. So first and foremost, there's a right hand. Did you see that right foot? The way it overcommitted? And by overcommitting that right foot, you saw his getter guy actually find a home for his own right hand. Let's just rewind that for a moment. So here it comes there. Bang. He's over-rotated almost. That back foot has almost come off of the floor. He gets caught. Now as getter guy, I want you to look at his head movement and look at the reluctance of Caleb Plant to really pump that jab out. He's almost using it as a rangefinder. You see there's a little bit of reluctance there because he wants to pull out with his body. You see how he leant back with his body rather than pull out with his feet? Again, you see how wide his stance was there? And when he does commit, because Caleb Plant is in that situation where he's overreached, he then has to create that upper body movement by dipping to the right. See that? So he leapt essentially there. I want to show you that again. I want to make this clear. He's going to leap there. That foot's gone. You see that lead foot? That's where the weight is now. The weight's not on that back foot. The weight's on the lead foot. He's going to lead with that left hook, misses. Now he has to dip. He doesn't get out of range. He dips, which is going back to which is what we were referring to before, that dipping of the right side. And he'll come up and down, he'll change his height dynamic, and then he jumps back out. Did you see that? He jumped back out. He didn't glide back out. Well, against Canelo Alvarez, this could be a potential problem for him, as you're able to see in these examples here. This is a typical sort of leap, yes, out of a southpaw stance, but can you see that leap from Billy Joe Saunders? And from there, Canelo's able to pull back. He's able to read that. And because once Billy Joe has committed to this shot, the moment he lands, that weight is shifted onto that lead leg, just like Caleb Plant does. Well, now there's no escape. So where does he go from here, Billy? He has to go low. Now, what I want you to see is the trajectory of Canelo Alvarez's shot. It's coming from here low. Now, if Billy doesn't duck, this shot is going to come in this sort of curving manner here. It's not a shot to the head where Billy can duck and it can go over his head. Instead, it will come through the body, essentially. So if he wasn't to duck, it would hit him in the solar plexus. Because he does duck, he lands straight into it. You see that trajectory of that shot? So Canelo's a master at making sure he hits something. And you can even see it in their little altercation with the slap. See that overcommitted leap there? The weight's gone onto the front foot. Yes, I know this is not a boxing ring, but I'm just trying to explain to you the method in which Plant uses to launch that lead hand is something that Canelo can pull back from and counter. And it's going to be a potential problem for Caleb Plant, in my humble opinion. It's that issue of weight distribution and the leap, the way he uses his dominant lead hand against a guy like Canelo, I believe will cause him a lot of problems. Let me know what you think, guys. How do you see this fight going? I believe Canelo Alvarez wins this fight either late by stoppage, possibly because Plant has started to leap onto these shots. He'll become a little bit more gun shy. He'll start to move around the ring because when he does narrow his feet, he can move around the ring. But as you saw in that clip with Uzgata guy, with Canelo coming in, he'll be coming in at pace with a lot of head movement, a lot better than Uzgata guys, and a lot more variation to his shots, a lot more punishing. It could make him very gun shy. So he'll either get stopped late, in my opinion, or he'll lose the fight on points. Let me know how you see this fight going. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care. Chat to you soon.